All right, so today we are going to finish up 8.4. So it's 8.4 day 2. And today's date is April 15th, 1-5. So we're going to combine the two ideas from Friday. And so we're going to use that zero factor property as well as factoring in order to solve for the possible values for the variable. Sometimes A, sometimes B, sometimes X, whichever. And so you should take notes on all of the examples here in this video, and then go ahead and work on your homework assignment that's on at the end of the video, or it's also on the board. All right, so this first one here, remember that first we're going to look for coefficients. There is no number in front of the variable for our first term, and there's an 8 in front of our second term. And so since there's no number in front of the first term, we don't have to worry about a coefficient for the greatest common factor for the coefficients. But we're going to look at the variable. There's an A here, and there's two factors A there. And so we can pull out one factor of A because they both have at least one factor of A. Remember, you're looking for that lowest exponent, and this one technically has that exponent of 1. So we're going to set up those parentheses like we saw last week. Again, you should have the same number of terms inside your parentheses that we started with. We started with 2 terms, so we should have 2 terms inside of the parentheses. And the original equation here is set equal to 0, and so I went ahead and set it equal to 0 as well. Okay, so A times what is going to give us that A squared? Well, I know that A times A is A squared. And so I just need the A there. And then in order to get the 8A, A times 8 is going to give us 8A. Again, if you wanted to double check, you could always distribute. A times A is A squared. A times 8 is 8A. And that equals 0. So I know that what I factored is exactly what we started with. So we're good to go for solving for these two variables. Okay, so the first half of last Friday's lesson, we talked about the zero factor property. And that says that since we're multiplying these two things together, either this part has to be 0 or this part has to be 0. Those are our only two options. One of those two things has to equal 0 in order for us to get a product of 0. And so option 1, A is 0. Option 2, A plus 8 equals 0. And almost all of them, if not all of them in your homework today, this A equals 0 is going to end up being a thing because you're going to end up with something. You're going to pull out that GCF, and that GCF is going to be a part of our solution process here. So A equals 0, and then over on the right side, we're going to undo addition with subtraction. And so A equals -8. So you got two options, A is 0 or -8. Moving on to our next one here. It looks like our GCF for the coefficients. If the coefficients are the exact same, you've got to use that as your GCF. And then looking at P squared and P, looks like they share at least one factor of P each. And so we're going to use 3P as our GCF. We're going to write those parentheses. It needs to be set equal to 0. And 3P times P is 3P squared. And 3P times 1 is 3P. And we started out with a subtraction sign, and so we should keep that subtraction sign in our next factored form here. All right, sorry about that. So we're going to keep that subtraction sign. And so we got 3p equals 0. That's one option. This could be 0. Or remember, our other option is that the second part could be 0. And so we have to solve for both because they're both possible solutions. 3p minus or p minus 1 could be 0, and 3p could be 0. If I add 1 on both sides, looks like p equals 1. And if we divide by 3 on both sides, p could be 0. So those are your two options. P is 0 or p is 1. Again, no coefficient here. Therefore, we don't have to worry about a number or a coefficient as part of our GCF. Looks like we do have some n's in common, though. We can pull out one factor n because n, or 1, is our lowest exponent here. N to the first power, that's our lowest exponent. Set up those parentheses, set it equal to 0. Subtraction sign, so I'm going to bring that down. N times n is n squared. N times 7 is 7n. And now we're going to set up those two equations. So one option n could be 0. And our other option, n minus 7 could be 0. Don't have to solve that any further. It's already solved for the variable. And on the right side, we're going to add 7 on both sides. And so n equals 7. And so those are our two options. N could be 0 or n could be 7. I just want to real quick remind us why we're doing this. If we take 0 and square it and subtract 7 times 0, we find out that we have 0 minus 0, which is 0. Or if we take 7 and square it, and then we subtract 7 times 7, well, we get 49 minus 49, which is also 0. And so 0 and 7 are those two numbers that are going to make that original statement that we started with up here true. If I put 0 in for n both times, I get 0. If I put 7 in both times for n, I get 0. So those are our two possible solutions. All of your homework questions need to have those two solutions. You need to solve two equations. Don't take any shortcuts. I know it's tempting, and I know you see patterns, but so much of math is just building and building and building. And so if we build good habits, when it gets more challenging, it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. Next one here. Go ahead and think to yourself, what do you think the greatest common factor is? You've got 4 and 8 to look at. Okay, so the factors of 4, 1, 2, and 4, and 8. And then the factors of 8, not 8. Factors of 4. Factors of 8, 1, 2, 4, and 8. There it is. So obviously the biggest one in both lists is 4. You probably didn't need to list out all the factors there, but it's a good last case scenario if you needed it. So we're going to pull out a 4, and then we're going to check to see if we can pull out any variables. Looks like yes, we can go ahead and pull out one factor of c. Again, the lowest exponent for the variable was 1 there, so we're just going to pull out the 1 factor. 4c times c gives us 4c squared. There's a subtraction sign. 4 times 2 is 8. I already have all the c's I need. And SpongeBob lives in a pineapple under a sea. 4c equals 0, one option. C minus 2 equals 0, our other option. We're going to divide by 4 on both sides. So C is 0. We're going to add 2 to both sides. So C is 2. And again, those are your two options that are going to make this statement true. Time for our joke of the day. What's the difference between a piano and a fish? I don't know, Mr. Korth, but it's probably really funny. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. Wah, wah. Oh, won't even let me go to the next slide. It was such a bad joke. All right, I got it working again. So we're looking at 2w plus 2w to the second power plus 2w equals 0. Go into yourself. What is the GCF there? Look at the coefficients first, then look at the variables. While you're thinking, I'll set up our factoring so it's ready to go. If you were thinking 2w, you're right. 2w times w is 2w to the second power. And 2w times 1 is 2w. So we're going to set up two equations. 2w equals 0 or w plus 1 equals 0. No shortcuts. Show your work. Understand the math. It's great you can get the correct answer, but we have to understand why it is that we're doing what we're doing. And I think that showing all of our steps is going to help us get there. So w could be 0 or w could be -1. Take a second. Decide what you think the GCF is here. GCF between the coefficients is 5, and then we're looking for common factors of the variables here, and that's x. So 5x times 1 is going to give me the 5. Whoa. It's going to give me the 5x squared. Well, that's x so that I can get up to x squared. I already have the 5. 5 times what gives us 10? Well, that's 2. And then I already have one factor of x here, and I have one in the GCF, so I don't need any more factors of x. How many equations are we going to set up? That's right, 2. 5x equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. We're going to undo multiplication with division. We're going to undo addition with subtraction. Do you guys know that 0 divided by 5 is not actually 2? It's 0. Almost got it, or almost messed up there. And that looks great. I think I'm running out of time for one more. So the GCF here is m, because there's no coefficient g that I need to worry about. M times m is m squared. There's a subtraction sign. M times 10 is 10m. That equals 0. Set up two equations. That one's already ready to go. M minus 10 equals 0. We're going to add 10 to both sides. M equals 10. Let's fast forward here. I think we're going to be okay. There's more. All right. There'll be a second video. Sayonara.